Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, the Game Master, and today we're going to talk about a man who some people think may have been the world's first superhero. But before we get into that, smash that like button, ring the bell so you know when I upload stuff, and make sure you're subscribed. We have a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. So, that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's adventure takes place in 1513. King Ferdinand V of Spain dispatches the indomitable Ponce de Leon on a fateful expedition to the distant shores of Florida. Departing from the bustling ports of Spain, their vessels cut through the blue waters of the Atlantic, carving a path towards the enigmatic lands of the New World. With the salty breeze whipping through their hair and the distant call of adventure echoing in their hearts, they chart a course westward, guided by the whispers of myth and the promise of untold riches. But their mission was said to end in failure, and the elusive fountain of youth remained beyond their grasp. Yet, in the face of disappointment, the Spanish persevered undaunted, armed with unwavering tenacity and the boundless thirst for immortality. They pressed on undeterred, knowing that even in the depths of uncertainty, the promise of triumph awaited those who dared to chase after their dreams, dreams that lied just beyond the horizon. And then we get into the main plot of today's tale, which takes place 130 years later. In the sultry heat of a Mexican afternoon, a lone figure emerges from the bustling streets of the city, his footsteps echoing against the cobblestone pavement. This ageless man has been known by countless names through the centuries. The Irish called him Dagda, the Germans knew him as Beowulf. To the British, he was Arthur, and to the French, he was Oberon. This immortal man casts a scrutinizing gaze upon the vibrant marketplace, where merchants haggle over exotic spices and colorful textiles. His arrival in this land of ancient mysteries is no mere coincidence. Rumors of strange occurrences have reached his ears, rumors of Spanish soldiers scouring the countryside with fervor reserved for the pursuit of the extraordinary. His instincts, honed by years of adventure and intrigue, told him that something mysterious lurked beneath the surface of this sun-drenched land. He set forth to uncover the secrets that lay hidden amidst the ruins of a forgotten civilization. Little did he know that this journey would lead him to encounters both perilous and profound. He found himself drawn to a rustic cantina nestled in a quiet alleyway. As he entered, the air was alive with the melodious strains of laughter and the tantalizing aroma of exotic spices, a welcome respite from the cacophony of the outside world. Taking a seat at the worn wooden bar, he couldn't help but notice the gaze of a striking woman, her dark eyes shimmering with a depth that seemed to pierce his very soul. Her name was Rosa, and she moved with a grace that spoke of elegance and refinement. Her every movement was a mesmerizing dance that captivated all who beheld her. Their eyes met, and for Rosa, it was love at first sight, an overwhelming rush of emotion that took her breath away. She referred to him as El Oso. As they engaged in conversation, Rosa's words spilled forth like a river of secrets, her voice trembling with emotion as she spoke of the hardships endured by her people at the hands of the Spanish soldiers. She recounted tales of brutality and oppression, of families torn apart and dreams shattered by the relentless pursuit of power and wealth. And amidst her tales of woe, she revealed the true reason behind the soldiers' presence in Mexico, their insatiable quest for the legendary fountain of youth, rumored to grant immortality to those who drank from its waters. Moved by her words, El Oso offered to walk Rosa home, a gesture of chivalry born from a desire to protect her from the dangers that lurked in the night. As they strolled through the moonlit streets, their laughter mingling with the soft rustle of leaves, Rosa invited El Oso inside, a bold invitation that spoke volumes of her desire for him. But their moment of potential intimacy was shattered by the sudden appearance of Spanish soldiers, their swords glinting in the moonlight as they descended upon the two lovers with ferocity. Just then, a figure emerged from the darkness, a mysterious stranger clad in a cape and mask, his sword flashing in the night. As he joined forces with El Oso, their swords became a blur of steel and fury, cutting through their foes like a scythe through wheat. They fought together, and a bond was forged in the heat of the battle as they stood side by side against a common enemy. And when the dust finally settled, and the last of the soldiers lay defeated at their feet, El Oso and William Lamport shared a knowing nod. Rosa's voice trembled with awe as she introduced him to El Oso. This is El Hombre Mascarado. She in turn introduces El Oso to William Lamport, whose mask protected his secret identity. With the enemy momentarily defeated, Oso extended a hand, a gesture of respect and camaraderie. Mascarado hesitated, but something in Oso's demeanor spoke to him, something strangely familiar. In a moment of silent understanding, Mascarado clasped Oso's hand in his own, feeling the weight of history and destiny in the simple act of a handshake. You fight incredibly well, hombre Mascarado. As do you, said Lamport to the large man standing before him. Senor Oso, do you know why we fight? Mascarado's words hung in the air. Oso regarded him with a steady gaze. I've heard stories of oppression and tyranny, he replied, his voice rough with the weight of unspoken truths. Mascarado nodded solemnly, his piercing blue eyes darkening with memories of injustice. It is more than stories, senor. It is the iron fist of Spain, crushing the spirit of Mexico, bleeding the land dry. He gestured towards the window where the distant glow of torches illuminated the night sky, casting shadows that danced with the echoes of suffering. In the name of conquest and greed, Spain seeks to strip them of their heritage, to plunder their riches, and enslave their brothers and sisters. Mascarado continued, his voice resonating with righteous anger. They tax the Mexican people into poverty. They desecrate their temples and trample upon their customs and traditions. Oso listened intently. He noticed William Lamport used words like they instead of we, slowly giving away his secret identity, word by word. We fight not just for the present day, Senor Oso, but for the future yet unborn, Mascarado declared, his voice ringing with defiance. We fight for the right of Mexico to reclaim what is rightfully theirs. As the weight of Mascarado's words hung in the air, Oso felt a burning desire to stand with these brave souls against the tide of oppression. Senor Mascarado, Rosa began, her voice trembling. While I was working in the cantina, I overheard the soldiers talking. They spoke of a secret mission, a quest for something they called the Fountain of Youth. Mascarado's brow furrowed with concern as he absorbed her words, his mind racing with the implications of such a revelation. The Fountain of Youth, he murmured, his voice heavy with skepticism, is nothing more than a myth, a tale spun by dreamers. Rosa shook her head, her expression grave. They spoke of it with such conviction, senor, she insisted, her eyes wide with fear. They said that the Spanish crown had sent them to find it, and that they would stop at nothing to claim its power for themselves. Mascarado's jaw clenched with anger, his fists tightening at his sides. The Spanish seek to exploit your land and your people for their own gain, he growled, his voice dripping with disdain. If they believe that that fountain of youth exists, they'll stop at nothing to find it, regardless of the cost. He turned to Oso, his gaze burning with determination. We can't allow the Spanish to succeed in their quest, Senor Oso, he declared, his voice ringing with resolve. We must find a way to thwart their plans, to protect Mexico and its people from their insatiable greed. Oso nodded. I'll stand with you, Senor Mascarado, he vowed, his voice echoing with the weight of his newfound purpose. I'm afraid I have to go, Oso said to Rosa. Their lips met in a tender kiss. Then Oso reluctantly pulled away. With one last lingering glance, Oso tore himself away from Rosa's countenance, his footsteps echoing softly against the cobblestone streets as he made his way towards the waiting figure of Mascarado. Together, the heroes disappeared into the darkness of the night, their silhouettes swallowed by the shadows, and they embarked upon their shared journey of defiance and rebellion. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the silence of night gave way to morning. In the dimly lit street where the skirmish had taken place, the Spanish soldiers began to stir, groaning softly as consciousness returned to them one by one. With bleary eyes and throbbing heads, they struggled to their feet, casting bewildered glances at their fallen comrades strewn across the cobblestone street. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, and realization dawned upon them like a thunderclap. Report to Captain Rodriguez immediately, one of the soldiers barked, his voice trembling with urgency as he regained his wits. Tell him that Mascarado has struck again. At their base, the morning air crackled with tension as the soldiers returned and conveyed what had transpired the previous evening. Captain Rodriguez, their corrupt commanding officer, was furious. How is it that once again Mascarado has eluded us, leaving our men battered and bruised in his wake? The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, their voices hushed with fear as they recounted the evening's events. Captain Rodriguez listened in silence, his jaw clenched with anger as the full extent of Mascarado's defiance became clear. We cannot allow this insolence to go unpunished, he declared, his voice dripping with venom. Mascarado might think he's untouchable, but mark my words, we will find him, and when we do, he will pay dearly for his insolence. As the soldiers whispered among themselves, one of them stepped forward, his voice trembling with trepidation. Captain Rodriguez, he began, his words hesitant yet filled with a sense of urgency. There's something else you should know. Mascarado, he has an ally now. Captain Rodriguez's eyes narrowed with suspicion as he turned to face the soldier, his expression darkening with anger. An ally? He repeated, his voice a low growl in the stillness of the morning air. Who is this ally? What is his name? The soldier hesitated, casting a nervous glance at his comrades before finally speaking. They call him Senor Oso, Captain. He fought alongside Mascarado last night, and from what I saw, he's a force to be reckoned with. A low murmur of apprehension rippled through the group of soldiers, their faces pale with fear at the mention of this new ally. Captain Rodriguez's jaw clenched with anger, his fists tightened at his sides as he processed the information. So, Mascarado has found himself a new comrade, he muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. Very well, but mark my words, this new friend of his will not save him from the fate that awaits him. No one is untouchable, not even the so-called heroes of the people. With a resolute nod, Captain Rodriguez turned his attention back to the task at hand, his mind already spinning with plans to capture Mascarado and his newfound ally. The game had changed, but the outcome remained the same. Mascarado would pay for his defiance, and Captain Rodriguez would see to it personally. Meanwhile, in the basement of a local cathedral, Mascarado and Oso pored over weathered manuscripts and crumbling parchments. Their fingers traced the faded lines of forgotten legends. With each passing hour, they unearthed fragments of truth, hidden amidst the whispers of time, piecing together a map that would lead them to their elusive prize. The Fountain of Youth is said to be hidden deep within the heart of the jungle, Masquerado mused, his voice tinged with excitement as he studied the intricacies of their makeshift map. But the path is treacherous, fraught with peril at every turn. Oso nodded in agreement, his eyes alight with determination. We must tread carefully, Signor Masquerado, he replied, his voice echoing with the weight of their shared quest. But if the legends are true, then we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. Together, they plotted their course through the dense foliage of the jungle, their minds ablaze with the possibilities that lay ahead. With each step, they drew closer to their goal, their resolve unyielding in the face of challenges that awaited them. And as the heroes set out into the unknown, one of Captain Rodriguez's men spots Senor Oso and points him out to Rodriguez. The commander orders his men to follow, but from a safe distance. The heroes embark on a perilous journey through the dense jungles that blanket the landscape, their every step fraught with danger and uncertainty. Guided by the cryptic clues they had unearthed in ancient texts and local legends, Masquerado and Oso plunged deeper into the heart of the wilderness, their determination unyielding in the face of the challenges that lay ahead. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, they found themselves ensnared in a labyrinth of twisting vines and towering trees. Each step brought them closer to their goal, yet further from the safety of familiar terrain. But it was not just the natural perils of the jungle that they had to contend with. For hidden amidst the dense undergrowth lay remnants of a long-forgotten civilization, its ancient ruins a testament to the passage of time and the ravages of history. Booby traps lined their path. Some had long since been set off by local wildlife, while others were still very much active. On more than one occasion, Oso catches a poison-tipped arrow. Masquerado is impressed. Undeterred by the dangers that surrounded them, Masquerado and Oso press on, their resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. With each obstacle they encountered, they drew upon their wits and their courage, navigating treacherous pitfalls and cunning traps. But as the heroes forged ahead, the relentless Spanish soldiers were hot on their trail, and they were far less lucky when it came to catching poison arrows in their bare hands. Many soldiers die, but those who try to run away are shot by Rodriguez. Meanwhile, amidst the sweltering heat of the jungle and the looming specter of danger, Masquerado and Oso continued on through dense foliage until they reach a hidden clearing. Masquerado and Oso stood at the precipice of their journey's end. The entrance to the sacred chamber that housed the Fountain of Youth stood before them. Chamber was a testament to a forgotten era, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and mysterious symbols that spoke of untold secrets and ancient wisdom. But their moment of awe was short-lived, for they knew they were not alone. With the sound of echoing footsteps reverberating throughout the chamber, they turned to face their adversaries, the relentless Spanish soldiers who sought to claim the fountain's power for themselves. With blades drawn and hearts set ablaze with determination, Masquerado and Oso stood their ground. The chamber erupts into chaos, and the battle commences. The clash of steel against steel echoes through the hollowed halls. But as the tide of battle turns in their favor, Masquerado and Oso caught sight of Captain Rodriguez amidst the chaos, his eyes alight with cruel satisfaction. With a sinking feeling in their hearts, they knew something was amiss, that their victory may come at a steep price. Their fears were soon confirmed as Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the din of battle like a knife, his words dripping with malice as he revealed his sinister plan. You may have bested my men, but victory comes at a cost, gentlemen, he sneered. Rodriguez looked over to the corner of the chamber where Rosa stood, her hands bound with rope, her eyes wide with fear. Oso and Masquerado's hearts clenched with dread as they realized the true extent of Captain Rodriguez's treachery. Rosa had been taken hostage, her life hanging in the balance as leverage against their defiance. Rodriguez pointed his flintlock at her waiting on the heroes to decide. With a heavy heart, Masquerado and Osa threw down their swords, their faces etched with resignation as they faced the grim reality of their situation. They had fought bravely, but their victory was hollow in the face of the sacrifice that had been demanded of them. As Captain Rodriguez reveled in his triumph, he approached the Fountain of Youth with a triumphant grin, his heart pounding with anticipation at the prospect of claiming its power for himself. You three are such fools. Had you not surrendered, only one of you would have died. Now all of you will, while I will live on forever. With a flourish, he reached out to drink from the shimmering waters, his hand trembling with excitement as he raised the cup to his lips. All of his men hurriedly drank from the fountain as well. But as the liquid touched his tongue, a look of horror spread across Captain Rodriguez's face, his eyes widening in shock as he realized the truth. The fountain was not what it seemed. It was a trap. One last cruel deception crafted by those who sought to hide the real fountain. With a strangled cry, Captain Rodriguez stumbled backwards, the poison coursing through his veins like a venomous serpent. His companions, who had followed him eagerly to claim their share of the fountain's power, met a similar fate, their faces contorted in agony as they succumbed to the deadly toxin. In their moment of triumph, the Spanish soldiers had been deceived, their hopes dashed by the hand of fate. As the echoes of their screams faded into the silence of the chamber, Oso embraced a terrified Rosa. Osa says, I've heard you shouldn't drink the water in Mexico, but this is ridiculous. Masquerado says it looks like it was one final trap, but if this wasn't the real fountain of youth, where is it? The three of them studied the temple, and as Rosa wandered through the dimly lit corridors, her search led her to a secluded corner where a faint glimmer of light caught her eye. Curiosity piqued, Rosa approached the source of the light, her breath catching in her throat as she discovered a hidden passageway concealed behind a crumbling idol. With trembling hands, she slid the stone aside, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into the darkness. Rosa called out to her compatriots, and they hurried to her side to see what she'd uncovered. In the dimly lit chamber, Masquerado, Oso, and Rosa stood at the top of the narrow staircase. Together, they descended into the unknown depths below. With each step, the air grew heavy with the weight of centuries, the faint glow of torchlight casting eerie shadows against the stone walls. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed deep within the bowels of the temple. And here, in the center of the chamber, bathed in a soft blue light, stood the object of their quest, the real fountain of youth. For a moment, they gazed upon the shimmering pool of the water before them. It was a sight beyond their wildest dreams, a testament to the mysteries of the world and the power that lay within its depths. With tears of joy streaming down their cheeks, Masquerado and Rosa approached the fountain, their hearts overflowing with gratitude for that which lay before them. But as they reached out to drink from the waters of the fountain, a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice filled with wisdom and sorrow. Stop, Oso called out, his tone grave as he stepped forward to join them. Masquerado and Rosa turned to face him, confusion clouding their features as they beheld the solemn expression on his face. But why? Rosa asked, her voice tinged with concern. Surely the fountain holds the key to eternal youth, to a life without pain or suffering. Oso shook his head, his eyes filled with a sadness born of centuries of loneliness and loss. Immortality is not something to be taken lightly, he explained, his voice tinged with regret. For some, it's a curse, a burden that weighs heavy on the soul. He paused, his gaze drifting into the distance, as memories of his long past flooded his mind. I have lived here on earth for thousands of years, he continued, And in that time, I have watched almost everyone I love wither and die. I have seen empires rise and fall, civilizations crumble to dust, and through it all, I have remained unchanged, a silent witness to the passage of time. Mascherado and Rosa listened in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of Oso's words. They had never considered the true implications of immortality, the toll it might take on them. It is a gift, yes, Oso continued, his voice tinged with a hint of bitterness. But it's also a burden not to be taken lightly. With a heavy heart, Mascherado and Rosa withdrew from the fountain, their dreams of eternal youth fading into the shadows of uncertainty. For they now knew that immortality came at a price they may not be willing to pay. Oso explains that he didn't come here to drink from the fountain. He came here to make sure the Spanish didn't get their hands on it. And now that they've been dealt with, his job here is done. Oso quietly walks out of the temple, letting Mascherado and Rosa choose wisely. And that brings us to our epilogue, which takes place in the year 1659 AD. In the dimly lit basement of the ancient temple nestled in the heart of Mexico, a mysterious figure cloaked in shadows carefully lowers the limp body of William Lamport into the ethereal waters of the Fountain of Youth. The chamber echoes with the gentle trickle of the sacred waters as they enveloped the form of the man known as El Mascarado. Lamport lay still, his breath shallow, his body bearing the scars of his struggle against oppression. Oso watched intently, holding his breath, as he waited for the fountain to do its thing. Minutes passed like hours in the hushed sanctuary until finally a faint tremor courses through Lamport's body. His chest rose with a sudden gasp, and vitality surged back into his weary limbs. Color returned to his pallid cheeks, and youth sparked anew in his eyes. Lamport sat upright, his gaze locking with Oso's in silent understanding. No words were needed to convey the gratitude that swelled within him. As Lamport rose from the rejuvenating waters, a newfound strength coursed through his veins. Though history may have recorded his demise, he would live on to defy fate and continue his fight against tyranny. Oso and William Lamport emerged from the temple, a parcel of land that is now owned by Oso. With gratitude in his eyes, El Mascarado thanks Oso. Oso was just thankful that Lamport was alive. So with a grateful tone of voice, Oso turned to Lamport and said, "You're welcome, son." And that was it for that game session. William Lamport was a real man, by the way, and the inspiration for the stories of Zorro. Researching him for this adventure was very interesting. We really enjoyed playing this. We hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, and as always, smash the like button, ring the bell so you know when we upload stuff, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment, as that really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. I hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you in the next adventure. Bye.